Hey everyone, today we're going to be considering which killer powers the entity the best. As you may know, the entity is powered by the emotions of those in its realm. The killers create emotion through causing the survivors to feel fear, and also their own anticipation to catch them. There's also some cases where anger, fear, and even affection from the killers likely helps to create energy. With this energy, the entity powers itself and continues the trials within its realm. Once survivors and killers are drained of their energy, they are tossed into the void, where they rot for eternity as empty shells. So, which killers create the most emotion and therefore energy or power for the entity? Let's get into it. Most of the killers are in the realm not for their own emotions, but are there primarily for fear, as in to create it, to cause the survivors to feel desperation. There are some killers in the realm who are seemingly there purely to strike fear in the survivors. These are characters like Executioner, Nemesis, Demogorgon, Shape, Nightmare, Cenobite, Doctor, Clown, Ghostface, and Trickster. These characters are all kind of in the boat of they're here because they love to kill stuff. They're all either sadistic or physically imposing in stature and or strength. This, I would argue, is what every killer has to achieve to some extent in order to get into the realm. They all need to make the survivors fearful if they aren't creating any emotional energy themselves. However, although they might not create much emotion or energy, elsewhere they are also the characters who can create the most fear or desperation in the survivors, most of them being highly powerful, scary, creepy, or brutal, all of them likely having a form of anticipation for catching survivors too, a thrill of the hunt, which probably creates energy also. But let's now look at the killers who are a little more complex in how they create power. The killers who also have rage and anger are going to be an emotional level above these fear-based killers, I think. For example, Huntress is very much a rage-fueled killer. Ever since the death of her mother, she has been aggressive and angry toward anything that enters her territory, which is now the entity's realm. This rage is going to be another way for the entity to get its energy. This still isn't going to be the most effective source, but it's going to add to the base energy production of striking fear and desperation into the survivors. Hag is an interesting case where it's kinda unclear whether any humanity remains, or if she remembers her past human life before the magic and hexes overcame her. I think if she doesn't have any memory of her past life, then the energy she creates is going to primarily be the fear from the survivors. However, I do think it's clear that she definitely is angry. Her growls and scowls lead me to believe that she definitely remembers, maybe not her prior life, but her captors who tormented and tortured her. So a bit like Huntress, the extra anger is going to add to the energy she creates for the entity. Hillbilly is in a similar spot, except I think his anger is far fresher and he seems much more actively angry. In almost any action or animation he does, there's some form of scream or shout, so that's a definite extra layer of emotion and energy being created. Same goes for Deathslinger. Deathslinger at the end of his lore was very angry and quite distraught by the fact that he was being used and helping an old enemy to profit of his actions. So all of these characters have that base of striking fear, but also have an extra layer of anger over it. That's going to make even more energy for the entity. Next up, we have the next level of emotional energy, with killers who have suffered some kind of loss or fear for what has happened to them or what will happen to them. Blight's an interesting one because I think his fear possibly comes from the fact that he may be partially aware of who he once was, but is equally aware of how far gone he is from that person. That's gotta be scary. Or I could be completely misinterpreting it, and Blight's humanity is just completely gone. In which case he probably just strikes fear, like that original list of killers. Potentially another angle to this would be if he remembers all those people he got killed by testing his serum. The guilt that came from that caused him to really spiral. But again, it's unclear if he really recalls it in his current blighted state. Pig is a character who is likely fearful to an extent. Before she entered the realm, she had been shot, and she would have died had she not been taken. Upon coming to the realm, she has a brief moment of shock and confusion, but quickly decides that this must all be part of Kramer's tests, and the entity is here to continue them. She then decides that the time for games is over, and she must simply kill. Depending on how true to this sentiment she is, and how easily she can move on, she likely won't be fearful, and doesn't seem it to be honest. I get the feeling though that the constant question of, is this all really part of Kramer's plan, is going to cause at least a small amount of uncertainty and fear for what's to come. Oni seems like an unlikely candidate for feeling fear. He definitely strikes fear, he's definitely filled with rage, so how is he fearful himself? Well, I think his fear is going to be for his family name, and the concern he has for what will become of it. The reason he began his murder rampage, and the way he tried to justify it, was that he needed to make sure the Yamaoka legacy would remain great. But after his rampage, it's cursed forever. So maybe he's not fearful exactly, but there definitely is more emotion there than just rage, knowing he is the the cause for his family's downfall. Spirit is going to be almost the flip side of this. She's going to feel anger toward her father for so desperately trying to uphold the Yamaoka legacy. I think in her currently ghostly state, she is quite clearly fearful of what she has become. She has these brief moments of anger, but also sadness when you look at her face, which leads me to believe she definitely remembers her past life, and it still drives her. She's partly angry, but she's also greatly saddened at the loss of her life, her mother, and what became of her father. Lots of emotions, lots of energy. Trapper also strikes fear and is quite clearly angry. He's one of few killers we know of that has actively fought back against the entity. He's not all too happy with being a killer, and it's led to punishment as a result. I don't think this can be boiled down to just rage though. I think he is likely scared of his situation, and fearful of this thing that he seems quite aware has corrupted him. The entity essentially stole his life, and got many people he cared about killed. So extra layer of emotion there, and so energy or power also. Bubba, upon coming to the realm, is particularly distressed by the fact that he has been taken from his family. He is scared too by the possibility of them being taken from him. When he enters the realm, he feels even more scared, but equally this fear comforts him, in a similar way to his family. He feared his family, but he was also reliant on what they said. He then decides that he cannot fail the entity as he did his family, and so out of fear he serves it. I think Bubba is a bit higher here because he has emotions from losing his family, but also from the fear of failing the entity. This is of course on top of him striking fear into survivors, although potentially not being rage-filled, but possibly angry, all of these creating energy for the entity. Plague is a character that will create a lot of energy due to her lingering fear for her people. Ever since she gave herself up to save them, she's probably kept it in mind to drive her. She's going to strike fear, she's also going to feel anger of the loss of her people to the plague, but also fearful for their survival as a whole, meaning she's creating a lot of energy due to all these emotions. However, I think they are likely lessened by the fact that she believes she has saved them. Even if she can't be sure, we can assume she believes she saved her people, which is something. That's how I interpreted her outlook at least. Artist to me seems almost like what would happen to Plague if she found out about the entity's deception and manipulation. In many ways, Artist likely sees the entity as her savior. Its crows did literally save her after all. Equally, they stalked her all her life and seemed to haunt many moments, like her brother's death or the deaths of her friends. In her friend's case, the crows literally killed them. Equally in the realm, she's regained her hands, kind of, as a result of the entity. The entity, to a degree, also led her to the thing she loved, art, but again also destroyed her life in many ways. Despite this manipulation, she kind of blames herself too, so all this together is likely leading to a lot of emotions. She's gonna strike fear, she's definitely angry, and the loss of her friends is weighing on her. Overall, she's gonna create a lot of energy. However, I do think there are a few characters who will create a bit more. Now, another form of energy that the entity can feed on is hope or affection. This is interesting because it's meant more so for the survivors. However, there are a few killers who are hopeful and have affection for others in the realm. Legion, first of all, are one of very few killers that really have direct relationships with one another. It's a rare case in the realm that 4 friends all get to go in together. The entity took Frank, Julie, Susie, and Joey. Legion takes the boxes of creating fear, having rage or anger, and likely being fearful themselves. I imagine they all feel a bit out of their depth in the realm, especially with killers like Nemesis stomping around. Not only all of this, but they have affection for one another. Frank and Julie likely in a romantic way, and the whole group is friends. So energy, despite the Legion typically seeming like one of the lesser scary killers, is likely made up for in their rage, their fear, and their friendship. Nurse and Wraith are also characters who can do all of the above, but also have hope in the realm and affection for one another. We've covered this a few times now, but essentially Wraith and Nurse canonically have a relationship of some kind, likely romantic, based on the Valentine's theme of the cosmetics that established this relationship. Both of these characters had very tragic lives, excluding some of Nurse's tome lore. And despite all they've been through and where they ended up, they found each other and formed a connection. This may seem nice, but my personal theory is that the entity has just done this to create more energy, instilling hope into some of the most traumatized characters, which, you know, just shows how evil it is. Nevertheless, this emotion is probably a powerful form of energy, which is why the entity does it. The killer who I believe is actually the most energy, dense is the twins. Twins tick all the other boxes. They can strike fear, they're definitely rage-fueled and angry due to the years of being hunted and outcast by society, and of course they will almost certainly remember the burning of their mother, and Charlotte, the death of Victor, leading to a substantial amount of personal fear also. Then finally, despite all this, the two twins have been reunited in the most unlikely of places, which will surely cause them to feel oddly hopeful. Victor was resurrected essentially. What amplifies this over characters like Legion, Wraith and Nurse though, is that the two of them enter the trials together. Charlotte has to witness, potentially, the death of her brother over and over if he misses an attack, which must be traumatic. This not only refreshes her fear and rage, but is also going to cause a great hatred toward the survivors, which is even more emotion and energy. So my conclusion is that the twins are the biggest source of energy for the entity, or you know, like, employee of the month. Yeah, alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and be sure to drop your own thoughts on this down below. Thanks, and goodbye.